Another high-profile commission of inquiry was not on our news bingo cards for 2025, but we're not surprised another one was established either. Born out of two parts: one, News 24 picking up slain whistleblower Babita Deokaran's investigation into the Tembisa Hospital extraction scandal, and two, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's bombshell press conference earlier in the year. The Madlanga Commission is very much the impactful sequel to the Zondo Inquiry that we've all been expecting, except this time, this commission has taken us to the heart of this country's problem all along: a politically and criminally compromised law enforcement and judicial system. Now, one of the country's finest journalists who's held our hands throughout Madlanga's proceedings is our very own specialist legal writer, Karyn Maughan.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast channels.
A special and genuine thanks to each and every one of you for listening, commenting, and sharing the lead on News 24 this year. With more than 150 episodes under our belt so far and broadcasting 4 times a week, that's Monday to Thursday, our show's racked up around 900,000 listens thus far. With our shared pursuit of quality journalism, we can continue to tell the South African story in truly unique ways in 2026. Happy holidays. Look after yourself, please. Buckle up and avoid drinking and driving. My name's Graeme Raubenheimer. This is The Lead, and this is the South African story. I think most South Africans just did not expect, Karyn, to hear just how close some alleged criminals are to certain senior key politicians. It's just brazen. That's kind of the word that comes to mind. The cat, and obviously Bheki Cele, Zondo Inquiry, and this political fixer of sorts, Brown Mokgotsi. The Madlanga Commission, let's just take a moment to just say it's been wild.
I don't know, when we heard we had the state capture inquiry, but it was really after the fact interrogations of manifest malfeasance and corruption. And a lot of it had sort of taken place quite a number of years before, and there was a detachment. In this particular commission, the events that are being played out are real-life court cases with real-life people, real-life murder victims. And of course, the most pivotal amongst those was Ahmed Swat, the engineer who News 24 reported so prolifically on after he was gunned down outside the Vereniging offices of his employer, QTech, on the 17th of April 2024. And that murder, of course, we know Swat, a father of 2, was wholly innocent. It was not the whistleblower that his killers believed. He really became symbolic of all the ordinary South Africans who find themselves on the receiving end of brazen criminality that seems to be unabated. But of course, the big difference, Graeme, with Ahmed Swat is that his case was picked up by Gauteng organized crime police officers who are now known as Witness A and Witness B. Subsequently, they were getting protection from the Political Killings Task Team and Gauteng Counterintelligence. And unlike most victims of crime, Ahmed Swat's alleged murderers were picked up and arrested within hours of his killing. And of course, that created the tumultuous cycle of events that have led all the way up to the doorstep of the current police minister and the former police minister.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's the firearms that were used in the particular Swat case, which has left that cold trail, that ballistics test, as you say, has been linked to so many other crimes, and it's essentially given us that golden thread that runs throughout. But, we can talk about all of these side issues. We could talk about all of the political scandal of it all, Karyn. But essentially, and I've said this from the beginning, and you've also been quite consistent in this regard, the disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team is very much the nexus point for the actual commission itself to look into, and that could be the focal point, as we note, for the interim report that this commission has to give over to the presidency. And who knows, will it be enough to see the back of Zondo Inquiry in terms of political office from here on out?
I think that it's clear that Zondo Inquiry is unlikely to stay in his position. whether this is a situation where the president, says that his disbanding, if there's a finding that the disbandment was unlawful or broke certain basic principles of constitutionality, exceeded the minister's powers. We don't know what the parameters of that legal wrongdoing may or may not be. But certainly, I think there's an overwhelming sense that the police is highly factionalized, and that Senzo Mkhunu's central role in all of this, even though he only spent a few months in the police ministry, may make it untenable for him to continue in that role. The real question is, how is his potential exit framed? And is he then redeployed to another ministry, which seems to be the ANC kind of habit whenever some high-profile individual within their ranks faces or is found to have committed serious wrongdoing, as we saw with the state capture inquiry? Or is he dismissed in his entirety, in which case I think there's very likely to be litigation from his side, because from his perspective, he has been unfairly vilified. And he said, I did believe I had the powers. I got advice from former NDPP Vusi Pikoli, and this was rooted in a genuine sense of desire to deal with the long-standing decisions that had been made by the police, for years before, from about 2019. That has been his evidence before the inquiry, and that is what the inquiry needs to weigh up in that interim report.
Yeah, incredible that also we will never look at a Woolies shopping bag the same way ever again. I know it's not the Madlanga
Commission. Absolutely
not. Yeah, even so that they might even change colors. I think there's white bags now.
Transparent. So you can see the cash.
Look, I know it's not the commission per se, but I mean, just to have parliamentarians grilling an alleged criminal within the cells of a Supermax prison in Pretoria is crazy, man.
No, I mean, it's been insane. I mean, there was, I think one of your questions is, what drama would you turn into a Netflix documentary? For me, it's the Madlanga Commission. Unparalleled, and of course the ad hoc committee, because of the insanity that we've seen displayed. You could not make this stuff up. You have someone like Nhlanhla, who our colleague Jeff Weeks has done exemplary work in exposing as one of the alleged recipients of the Tembisa Hospital looting, the most egregious form of substantive, really stripping like sheets off the backs of the poorest of the poor, so that you can buy skinny jeans, for skinny jeans tenders, and supercars in a particular shade of blue, as there's the allegation against Morgan Maamela. So, you have this individual in his designer clothes and leg irons talking to, some of our most well-known politicians in Kgosi Mampuru prison. It's stuff that not even if a scriptwriter gave you that proposition, they'd be like, no, that's too far-fetched. But it's not, because it's South Africa, and that is how we roll.
Yeah, and of course, Glynis Breitenbach basically calling out the cat in person, and then Cat making some sort of note at the end of that sort of interaction between the two. It's going to be etched in my mind forever, Karyn. Look, let's be serious also for another second. This testimony around Deputy Ekurhuleni top Metro cop Julius Mkhwanazi has also been quite hectic. The alleged cover-up of a 2022 murder, and then the hit on Brakpan crime fighter Marius van der Merwe in the wake of his damning testimony against Mkhwanazi, as we know, of course, witnessed. It throws a dark pall over proceedings at this inquiry. It's been one of the darkest moments, I think, so far.
What was for me one of the moments was that, we'd had all this evidence from the suspended police EMPD chief, Mapiyeye. We'd had Reva Spice's evidence. Of course, Mapiyeye suspended Spice, gone to a different department. The EMPD spokesperson, Kilebogile Tepa, and just the absolute brokenness of these individuals who were all sort of pushed out of their positions in one way or another, because they demanded accountability for EMPD Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi in the wake of, again, Jeff Wick's excellent reporting, exposing how he played a pivotal role in securing blue lights for Kat Nhlanhla. And of course, we know from his very water-drenched evidence in the commission that, he'd received money from Nhlanhla and thought absolutely nothing wrong with this. And, aided and abetted in a very clear way through the evidence by Imogen Mkhwanazi, the retired, city manager for Ekurhuleni, who some of our colleagues in Times Live have literally, documented how several of her, most photographed outfits cost several million rand. And it's almost, again, the stuff of, a very fantastical script, but it is real life. And it had devastating consequences for ordinary people. I for one am very glad that AfriForum is taking up the cause of the family whose son, brother, father was allegedly murdered by these police officers involved in this alleged cover-up by Julius Mkhwanazi. And of course, Van der Merwe, the person who admitted in his evidence as witness D that he had dumped the deceased's body in a dam and been part of that cover-up. And of course, we know IPID is suggesting that it will move on this case pretty soon. But these had real-life consequences, and it didn't just have real-life consequences for the people who were killed, like Ahmed Swat. It had real-life consequences for the people who try to do the right thing. And, seeing that devastation. And also, I think some of the most emotional moments for me was witness B testifying and breaking down. This was a very brave female police officer who's been pivotal in this, an organized crime official, breaking down about how she interacted with the families of the people affected by these killings. And when I spoke to Ahmed Swat's wife, Felicia, she said witness B had actually come to her house with pictures of the people that were believed to be the target of the hit that claimed her husband's life. And when she said, "But this is not my husband," broke down, and the women stood outside hugging each other and crying. And witness B said to her, "This was never meant for your husband. This was never meant for your husband." And it is impossible, Graeme, to hear evidence like that and not get choked up. There were so many moments in this commission where I honestly thought, I have to hold on to this. I have to keep feeding the life, and I should not be crying. But there's a deep ache beyond the rage, just this incredible heartbreak at how crime has devastated our country. And the fact that our president will go to the White House and, tell everyone that it's okay, everyone's getting murdered, this isn't a racially motivated thing, as a pushback against white genocide, false white genocide claims, I think is an indictment on our government and, how far we've come from the promise of the democracy that we fought so hard for.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Karyn, and you've done absolutely sterling work keeping it all together, so thank you so much on behalf of the News 24 team, you and Bernadette Wicks. Let's end here. I mean, your argument is that finally government has to take all of this, right, and take law enforcement seriously once and for all, put ethics first, compensate our law enforcement properly once and for all, so we can get a good, credible SAPS. I didn't know this, but we have one of the largest police forces in the world. Why aren't we utilizing this to the best of our ability to get bobbies on the beat, on the streets, to make it a noble service that works for everyone?
We do have one of the biggest police services in the world, but they are dwarfed by the private security industry, and which is also featured obviously quite prominently in the evidence around Ekurhuleni. And we are the most unequal society in the world. And unless we start fundamentally dealing with that inequality, crime is going to be a consequence, particularly in an environment where there is no accountability, whether it be for the large-scale corruption and looting that we've seen committed by the state and private corporations, by the way. We all know from the state capture area that they were very, very willing to dip their hand in the proverbial cookie jar. And also, people who are committing large-scale acts of fraud. It took a very long time before the Steinhoff case ever made it to court. And then, of course, Marcus Jooste took his own life and sort of circumvented a process of accountability that he should have been subjected to. And it affects all of us, but of course, tragically, it affects those who have the least the most because they are unable to protect themselves. And it is a form of sort of psychological and emotional terrorism that most South Africans, if you ask them, will know someone who's been murdered or will know someone who's experienced adverse criminality or violent criminality or have themselves experienced it. And I think we've normalized that to a degree that's actually problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that factoid, South Africa has the 8th largest police service in the world. It's just something to just keep in mind when we think about the capability. All the tools are there. We just need to hone them for the best of our abilities. Okay, you've already alluded to this, Karyn. I don't know who told you about this, but it's Roby's Round Robin.
I listen to your podcast, Graeme. I religiously listen to your podcast. How would I not know? How would I not know?
I know you've been...
And it's me.
Yes, and you've been champing at the bit to take part in Roby's Round Robin.
I'm so ready for this.
10 questions I'm going to throw at you. Please be prepared to answer them effectively. They're mostly news-related. Of course, they're fun and flippant. One is the one South African scandal you still want answers to in your lifetime, Karyn Maughan.
What was that money doing in the couch? That's all I want to know. And second of all, how in everything that is sacred is Jacob Zuma managing to afford all of this litigation, even after his state funding got cut? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's that Sudanese businessman, hey? If you could put one politician on airplane mode for a month, who would it be?
I actually wouldn't put anyone on airplane mode because I kind of think that's the joy of South African democracy. It's like this very dysfunctional family. And outside, what we have occasionally seen of like particularly violent threats against foreign nationals, which I would definitely put on airplane mode forever and ever. I think that part of the cut and thrust of democracy is that everyone has a voice, even those people that you don't particularly agree with and may not actually like, and that's the joy of it. So no airplane mode for anyone.
Sure, maybe that pesky lead presenter from the lead on News 24, maybe just put him on mute.
Never, Graeme.
Which press conference in 2025 emotionally hurt you the most?
Oh, this one I do not know. I think I would have to agree with Adrian on the Trump Ramaphosa press conference, just because I again, like I said to you before, I find it so sad that our defense wasn't, a defense against the white genocide mythology was like, oh no, we basically, everyone's getting murdered and that's just normal for us. And then having to sort of like almost take out the most grotesque details of how violence has ravished our communities and particularly our poorer and largely black communities. In such significant ways. I found that really, really hard to swallow.
Yeah. Okay, your favorite News 24 colleague. You got to be biased. I'm very interested to hear what you're going to say.
Okay, so there's two. Jan Kaba, obviously, because, he and I, when I was going through my whole Zuma situation, Jan Kaba, who's very introverted but absolutely brilliant, hilarious, one of the best human beings in the world, in my opinion, which is not humble in any way, shape or form, was like such a major source of support for me, and he remains one of my favorite people. And of course, the amazing, the gorgeous, the talented, the humble, the absolutely incredible Bernadette Wicks, who is the real power behind the throne that is Jeff Wicks. If you want to know why Jeff Wicks is so good, apart from his intense talent, it's his absolutely incredible wife.
That's the secret. What's the one story in South Africa this year that deserved the Netflix docuseries treatment? I think you've already answered this.
Yeah, Madlanga, obviously.
Which South African song would be the soundtrack to your journalism career thus far?
There's an amazing song by Sun El musician and Ami Faku that's called Until Galway. And it's basically this thing of how, you've got to keep hustling, keep pushing, and like that sense of like a godly purpose. And I really believe that. I feel like, whatever may drive people, for me, it's my faith and my belief, my fundamental belief that this is what God made me to do. But I think everyone in this profession, and particularly at News 24, is driven by a real sense of purpose. And we want to illuminate, we want to bring the dark things into the light, and we want to change South Africa for the better, because this is an incredible country. We've been written off so many times, and we keep triumphing, whether it's the Springboks or just the simple, beautiful kindness of our people. We have so much more to give, and that's why the journalists at News 24 keep fighting to tell the truth, so we can be in a better South Africa than the South Africa that we deserve.
Hallelujah, cheers to that. Now, if you were forced, though, Karyn, to embed with one government department for a single year, which one do you think you'd survive the longest in?
Oh, I wouldn't survive any, but I would definitely love to be in justice, because that's my passion. I'm excited for this potentially radically new era of the NPA. You know, we've got to see who the NDPP will be. But, you know, if Ramaphosa does make a choice to go with someone like Hermione Cronje, who's, you know, gave an incredibly impressive interview in my perspective, they may and in the wake of Madlanga, this might be the time that we see the change that we've all been hoping so much for, like a genuine new dawn that's beyond the realms of political slogan and brings real transformation to a country that desperately needs it.
You have one wish for South African journalism next year. What is it?
It's that people learn to really interrogate their sources of news, and that they understand that journalism is able to capture reality in a way that is far more nuanced and far more close to what reality actually is. And this thing of relying on disinformation, social media posts that reinforce particular biases that people have, that people realize, like, this is actually not a way to understand the world. I have to be better, and I have to try and really grasp all the intricacies of my existence in a way that enables me to see things for really what they are. I would wish the end of social media, but that's not going to happen. But yeah, that's what I would hope for.
All Karyn Maughan wants for Christmas is?
My mom.
Lovely. And then fill in the blank. South Africa will officially be okay when?
We start addressing our rampant inequality.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. That's the absolutely spectacular Karyn Maughan. Always available, always makes time for the lead. Even if she's in court, she's going to have herself a very merry little Christmas. And thank you so much for all of the time you've given us over the last how many months? Years till 2026. I think it's going to be a dog show.
And Graeme Raubenheimer, I just have to say that you have done an absolutely exemplary job on this podcast. I mean, you came in, you made this your own. You have created a formula that I listen to, that I've spread with so many other people, and you're doing an incredible job. And, you know, if I had a third person on my list of favorite colleagues, you would be there. Aww. So well done. And I hope you have a good holiday. And thank you for bringing such a transformational element to News 24.
Oh, that is amazing. Thank you, Karyn Maughan. I really do appreciate that. That warms the cockles of my heart as we're thinking about...
Of course. I love you.
The whiskey we'll be drinking. Thanks, Karyn. Have a good one. Chat soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Remember, so long as there's trusted news first, you'll always have the lead on News 24. Here's to an epic 2026.